Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. My name is Ashna Sisodia, and you are watching this session on Unacademy's YouTube channel UPSC Articulate. In today's session, we'll be talking about IMF bailouts. Why are we talking about this topic? Because IMF has recently agreed to consider a bailout plan for Sri Lanka because of it is in the middle of an economic crisis. So, what it means for Sri Lanka and what is this International Monetary Fund? We'll be talking about that. What are the major roles of IMF? Those things are important for us from UPSC point of view. So, first of all, let's look into this. The International Monetary Fund last week confirmed a $3 billion bailout plan for Sri Lanka's struggling economy. So IMF, it usually plays a key role in promoting global economic stability by coming out with its policies, especially the bailouts, because it has a significant impact on the global economy and on individual countries around the world. The IMF usually imposes conditions like structural reforms as a condition on countries before it gives money to them. So IMF has confirmed that it is negotiating currently with Pakistan for a $1.1 billion bailout plan because even Pakistan is facing a severe economic crisis because of its failing currency and the price rise. So what is this International Monetary Fund? What is this IMF? IMF is basically an international organization which was established in 1944. This was established to promote international economic cooperation, exchange rate stability, and resources to member countries experiencing economic difficulties. The headquarters of this body is in Washington DC in United States of America, and currently there are 190 member countries. IMF is governed by a board of governors which is composed of one governor from each member country. And each member country has a number of votes in the IMF which is based upon a quota system. Very, very important. Because this quota system reflects a member's relative size in the global economy, and at present, IMF has resources of over $1 trillion which it uses to provide loans and other forms of assistance to member countries. Now let's talk about the major roles played by IMF. The first thing is lending. The IMF provides loans to member countries that are experiencing balance of payment crisis, balance of payment difficulties, so as to overcome the short-term economic problems and implement policies to achieve long-term stability. Another role that is played by IMF is surveillance. It monitors global economic developments and provides advice and assistance to member countries to help them maintain macroeconomic stability. Apart from that, it provides technical assistance to member countries in areas like tax policy, like budget management and financial sector regulation, and capacity building to help member countries develop the necessary skills and institutions to manage their economies effectively. IMF provides capacity building. But what about India? India faced a balance of payment crisis in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Due to this BOP crisis, because of high inflation and large fiscal deficit. So, to address these issues that we were facing at that time, the government implemented economic reforms, also called as LPG reforms, in 1991. These reforms were also part of the new economic policy. So, India at that time sought assistance from IMF to stabilize its economy and restore confidence in its financial system. In 1991, India signed a loan agreement with IMF for $2.2 billion, which was the largest loan ever extended by IMF to a single country at that time. An IMF bailout in 1990s, it played a critical role in India's economic reforms because it helped India to put the country on a path to sustained economic growth and development. So how does the IMF help countries? IMF basically lends money in the form of SDR. What is this SDR? SDR means special drawing rights. This is provided to countries that are troubled with the economic problems. And SDR, it simply represents a basket of five currencies, namely the US dollar, the euro, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, and the British pound. The IMF carries out its lending to troubled economies through a number of lending programs, like there is extending credit facility, there is the flexible credit line, the standby agreement. And countries that are receiving the bailout, they can use these SDRs for variety of purposes depending upon their circumstances. And at present, Sri Lanka and Pakistan both are in urgent need of US dollars if they want to import essential items and also to pay their foreign debt. So, it is nothing but a first line of defense. In normal times, IMF uses its quota based resources to finance the lending. Now, why do you think we need this thing? Why there is a need for IMF bailouts? Well, they are needed for economic stability because it provides a source of financial support to stabilize a country's economy and prevent further economic decline and restore confidence in the country's ability to repay its debts. Apart from that, we need it to prevent contagion. Actually, these bailouts help prevent financial crisis from spreading to other countries because we are able to contain the economic damage and stabilize the financial system of the affected country through this. Then we need structural reforms because there are some conditions associated with this as economic policy changes are required, and these things can help the country address its underlying economic problems and it can put it on a sustainable path to growth and development. Apart from that, it provides access to international capital markets, which is essential for economic growth and development, and for multilateral cooperation because these are a form of multilateral cooperation that promotes financial stability and economic growth in the global economy. But there are major issues associated with these bailouts. The first issue is conditionality because typically these bailouts are tied to strict conditions which require countries to implement painful economic reforms such as austerity measures and structural adjustments that can politically be difficult to implement. Then it brings moral hazard. It creates that where countries become dependent on the IMF and they do not take the necessary steps to address their underlying economic problems, knowing that IMF will step in to provide financial assistance. Another issue is the debt sustainability because it can provide a temporary relief without addressing the underlying structural issues, and it can amount to increasing debt burdens. Then another major issue is political interference. There have been many instances where IMF have been accused of political interference in the countries which can undermine the credibility of it, and it can create tensions between the organization and the recipient country. And also it can put a social impact also. IMF bailouts can have negative social impacts, particularly on vulnerable populations such as the poor and the marginalized. So all in all, we can say that IMF bailouts as financial assistance programs have been helpful in providing relief to the countries experiencing economic crisis or facing the risk of defaulting on their debts. While these programs have been helpful, They also come with a set of challenges which needs to be addressed. But in the long run, these bailouts play a critical role in stabilizing the global financial system, besides preventing economic crisis from escalating into full-blown financial contagions. So this is it for this session, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Take care.